Hey, it's me. It's been a while now, hasn't it? Welcome back to the Frank James Podcast. Today's guest on the podcast is the YouTube comedian and educator Zach Starr. His first channel, Zach Starr, with 1.36 million subscribers, is focused on engineering. And his second channel, which I discovered first, is called Zach Starr Himself, where he posts topical, thought-provoking, and most importantly, hilarious comedy sketches that don't have to do with engineering. In our conversation today, we talk about a lot of stuff, including his YouTube journey and growth. And he's like very open with a lot of the details, which I think is interesting. If you want to know what it's like to really go from having a day job to doing YouTube on the side and suddenly making YouTube your everyday full-time job, he tells that story. He talks about creativity and idea generation. We talk about creativity and idea generation, as well as his writing process and a very practical guide on how he uses mind maps to create his comedy sketches. Very practical information that you could start using today. A quick editorial note is that we recorded this conversation over a year ago in August, and I fell into this spiral where like a month went by and I didn't post it, and then 2 months went by, and then as each day went, I felt worse and worse that I didn't post it right away, and it just grew. It just like became this thing that I couldn't even think about. It was causing so much stress because of how long it had been, and it got out of hand, and I had a breakdown. No, I'm kidding. So apologies to all of you and to Zach for keeping this on ice for so long, because it's a really good episode, a very good conversation. And in light of this detail of when the recording took place, he talks about today how he was posting every day a video on YouTube, one of his comedy sketches, in December of 2022. But since we recorded that episode, 2 more Decembers have passed in which he has, as far as I can tell, he posted a sketch every day. And the amazing prolific output is astounding. I am in awe of him. I can barely put out one video a week. If I tried to do one every day, I would probably just go into a coma. Without further ado, the very funny, very smart, very insightful Zach Starr. Let's zoom out a little bit, because I'm interested to hear. The comedy channel was the first one that I saw of your work, and then I was like, oh wait, this guy's got a whole other channel. So when you say that you could be a full-time YouTuber in 2020, was that off of the non-comedy channel?
Correct. That was before the comedy channel was ever made. That was purely the educational one. I think when I quit my job, I had made, like that last year, I'd made 85K, something like that. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I can live off that alone.
Yeah.
And I was tutoring full time while I was working on the channel, and tutoring pays really well. So I was making in the 6 figures with both my incomes combined. And then I was like, okay, well, I could quit. It's going to take a big pay cut, but I can move full time to the channel. So maybe I can make up for that. And it ended up kind of working out. It took me a little bit to get up to that point again, but it worked out perfectly. Because I was full time, I was able to do more sponsorships, just make more videos in general. And I got to a point where I didn't love my tutoring job.
Yeah.
And I was kind of ready. Like if I could quit, I was going to. And we hit that point. And it was during COVID that I made the comedy channel.
Yeah. I find that interesting because in some ways, you and I have like a parallel thing going where we make comedy, but also some like informational, educational, whatever. Although
that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Although you talk about like real scientific stuff, and I'm kind of just like I'm teaching about personality types.
Personality stuff. It's like psychology stuff, kind of, right?
It's adjacent to science in a way. So the comedy channel coming up, like, how did you? Maybe we should like back up all the way and tell me your entire YouTube journey and how you started up the initial channel and when it started to look like it was going to be something that you could do more regularly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to do a fast version, but it was like 7 years ago, 2016 is when I made that first educational channel.
Yeah.
And my goal at that time was to make a website, not a YouTube channel, a website to help students figure out what they want to study in college. with an emphasis on math, science, and engineering because I studied electrical engineering myself. So I wanted to build that. I thought it'd be something very helpful for incoming students. And we were making these videos for it, putting it on this website. And then I said, wait, we're making videos. YouTube's a video platform. Maybe we should try putting something on YouTube. But I didn't know how the business of YouTube worked. So I was just kind of throwing it on, seeing what happened. And it was like a few months down the line, like a few months, I had 10 videos on the channel that were getting no views. One started picking up. And I started seeing kind of the power and consistency of YouTube, where I was like, okay, this video is getting no views per day, and then 10 a day, and then 100 a day. And then it capped at like 500 a day for a while. And I was like, oh, this is the power of YouTube. And all my videos back then were very searchable. What is computer engineering, mechanical engineering, stuff like that. Things that people are typing in still to this day, word for word, into YouTube search. So those videos are coming up. So I think that helped build the educational channel. And then I kept doing that for a really long time until I kind of pivoted a little bit. Not a huge pivot because I didn't want to lose my audience. But instead of doing what should you study in college, I started talking about applied math, technical concepts that you might learn in engineering, math, or physics. So people in those degrees might come by and say, oh, I need to understand this better. This video is helpful. Then I wanted to do a comedy video on that channel related to engineering. I had an idea, and I was terrified to do it.
Yeah.
So I reached out to another guy named Andrew Dodson. He has a physics-based channel, and he does comedy stuff too. And I was like, would you like to be in this video with me? We can do it together. Because then I'd feel like if it failed, we'd fail together, so it wouldn't be all on me kind of thing. I was so nervous. Because if you make a joke on YouTube and it falls flat, that's forever cringe. It doesn't go away. People will be commenting, this is kind of cringe 2 years later.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't like that idea. And you do it and you have no feedback. It's not like stand-up comedy. You don't see what people are saying. You see what they're commenting. So I made that first comedy video about engineering professors, and it did well. It's one of my most viewed videos on that channel, and I became obsessed with making comedy after that. I'm like, oh, this is so fun. People are like laughing at something I came up with.
Right.
This is so weird. And I then started making more comedy videos related to engineering or school or whatever for that channel. And then, I don't know if you've noticed this, but once you start thinking of comedic ideas, it becomes automatic. You start always thinking of them. When you're watching TV, you could be in the shower, at the gym. It just, things come to you. And things were coming to me that weren't educational related. And so I was like, maybe I should just make a second channel for just comedy of anything else. That's where that second channel was born. And after I started doing that, I realized it was so much easier to make those videos because I don't have to fact check it. I don't have to do research. I don't have to do animations. I don't have to do any of that. It's so much easier. So I started doing the comedy videos and realized once I started making money off those, like, oh, I can put out 6, 7, 8 videos a month. I don't know if you saw in December, I tried to post 25 videos in 25 days.
Oh, wow. And I didn't catch that.
Those months are crazy for me, but with AdSense up and just kind of a cool little Christmas thing where every day I get to wake up and read comments from a new video. I try to do that. So you can make videos so much faster with comedy, and that's why I feel like it's a good second channel to have.
And this is, you upload, even without the, filming something 25 days straight, you upload to the comedy channel much more frequently than the main channel. Much more frequently.
And that's because if I put all my time into the educational, maybe 4 videos a month, maybe.
Right.
At this point especially, because I've made so much content on topics I know well, I sometimes have to branch off into things I might need to do more research on, or I might have known well in college, but now I need to review.
Yeah.
So it still takes a while. But comedy, think of an idea, think of a title. Usually I just think of a title and then make the content, and it takes me a day to get it out.
So you just go like kind of spontaneously. You go video by video. You don't have like a production calendar or a pipeline where it's like, I'm writing the script for this, I'm filming this, I'm editing this.
Correct. I can't do a schedule.
Yeah.
Because if I don't keep to it, I get annoyed. If I keep to it, I'm like, oh, this is what I should be doing. There's no like huge payoff for that. It's like, this is what I should be doing.
Yeah.
I don't know why I should congratulate myself.
Right.
So if I'm like, all right, I need to get a video out tomorrow. I'll write today. I'll film it tomorrow. And then I have a friend come into town or something like that spontaneously, which happens in Vegas. I'm not going to say no because I have to get a video out. I want to hang with friends. I want to do something. Maybe I get sick or something. So I've never kept to a schedule, but I do try to get a video out every 4 to 7 days at least.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you. I just hate the feeling of going 2 weeks, no video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I just did that,
out.
and it eats you from the inside.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the subscribers don't care that much, but like, I want to put a video out right now.
Yeah.
They'll wait for you, but I want to put one out.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like with most channels that I follow, I wouldn't really be aware if they didn't upload for 2 weeks, unless it was like one of the rare channels where I'm like following constantly, and that's like very rare and doesn't happen.
Yeah,
much,
exactly.
so.
Yeah, unless it's like a news channel or a daily news channel or something.
I guess there was no news today.
I'm never all my favorite comedy skit people. I'll sometimes be like, "When's the last time they uploaded?" And it's like 3 weeks. I'm like, "Oh, I barely noticed."
Yeah, exactly. So when you were doing the 25 in a row, that was like day by day. Every day you got up.
So this is brutal. And a lot of people comment, they're like, he probably did these far in advance. No, that'd be smart.
Right.
Like, you think I'm smarter than I am. I was dumb and I'll wait till November, and then November hits, and then we got Thanksgiving and my girlfriend's birthday's in November. Things are happening, and then I'm like, it's like November 28th. I'm like, I should start making those videos now.
Yeah.
So I'm usually, when I do that, about 3-4 days ahead.
Okay.
So if it's December 1st, I'm working on the video that's coming out on the 4th or 5th.
Right.
And I'm trying to make shorter videos or easier videos,
right,
if I can, so I could get 25 in 25 days. But it's wake up, record, edit, post, then with the little time I have left, write something for 4 days from now.
Right. Yeah. 4 days is good because it gives you a buffer in case you have a day where it's like, I have nothing, or like,
exactly. Which absolutely does happen.
Yeah. I would be just afraid of I guess there's two sides of it. My quality of just like the ideas being bad. And then I would also be afraid of the audience being like, yeah, we've seen enough. We're just not going to tune in anymore. Like
this is now spam-like, guys.
Yeah, it's like, we like you not that much, okay?
Yeah.
Did you notice, did you have any trepidation about that going into this? Did you notice any kind of difference in the audience response when it was every day as opposed to once a week-ish?
No, when it's once a day, I get a very dedicated comment section. People are like, oh, another video, another great video, thank you so much. I'm like, I've seen you comment the last 3 days straight. So if there are people unsubscribing because of that, because it's too much, it's made up for by a lot by the people who stay or subscribe, because the algorithm does help you out. The most amount of money I've ever made in a day from AdSense was during the month of December because of that.
Wow. Yeah. So did you notice like a rapid increase in growth during that time?
Yes. Yeah. That was that month. 1 year I made 70,000 subs. I got 70,000 subs.
Wow.
And that was one month I crossed 30K in ad revenue.
Wow.
Which was ridiculous to me. For everyone watching who thinks that's normal, it's not. That's crazy.
On comedy.
On comedy,
Yeah,
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
on comedy. That is so difficult. I think people don't realize like the CPMS, like the amount of money we get for 1,000 views is doggy poo compared to what you probably get with the educational channel.
100%. Yeah, exactly. Educational is like I'll get low end 3, but average 4 to 5 CPM. And comedy, I'm lucky to pass 2.
Yeah.
I usually hover in the 150 to 180
Yeah.
$1.80 range for 1,000 views. So it's so much lower. But it was 1 month where I was freaking out. It was like that 60 minutes. How many views you just got was like 700,000. It was
Wow.
scary high. I was like, I hope this continues. It did not at all, but it was really cool to see for that month.
Yeah. What was the biggest hit you had from that stretch?
I think it was probably one of my religion videos during that.
Was it the atheist versus Christian after we find out we're in a simulation? That's got 1.7 right now.
That might have been it because that was in December, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just looking at a bunch of videos in a row that say 8 months ago, so I'm guessing that was it.
Yeah, that would have been my December stretch. Yeah. That one might have been it. And when you have one, there might be a few that go like, for me, very viral, which for me is like, 1 million is viral for me. That's awesome. But then when you have everything else maybe getting 100 to 150K, but it's all at once, it's your last 8 videos are all doing that.
Yeah.
From the month, that adds up. That
Yeah.
quickly gets your real-time views very high.
Oh yeah. What did it do to you creatively? Like when you committed to this, did you commit to it publicly? You're like, hey guys, I'm doing this, or did you kind of just start doing it?
Yeah, great question. I did commit to it publicly because it forced me to do it. I thought that was the only way I would not burn out. I'm like, okay, if I tell people I'm doing it, I'm going to feel bad if I'm like 10 days in, like, psych, just kidding. It was hard. I don't want to do it anymore. I would hate that. So I told people about it. And yeah, it forced me to think. It showed me what's possible. It was like, if you force yourself to make a video a day, you'll think of a video a day. I sometimes have days where I'm like, I can't think of anything. But when I have no reason to think of something, like I don't need to get a video out for a few more days, then you won't think of something.
Right.
If the sponsor needs a video tomorrow, you'll think of a video today.
Yeah.
It'll come to mind. So yes, putting kind of the pressure on myself by letting everyone know and then just doing it and saying, I'm going to get this done no matter what. You kind of see the creative process, what's possible. You're like, you can do this.
Yeah.
If you just say you're going to do it.
Yeah. Did you do you feel like the quality of the ideas you had was any different during this time? Or do you think it kind of was the same quality as usual? Or is it like, because it could go either way. It could be like, I'm just pulling this idea out of my butt. It's garbage, I know, but I have to make a video. Or it could be like, I am now having these ideas I never would have entertained before that are actually really good.
Yeah, for the ones I did this past year, I would say most about the same, but some I did not like.
Yeah.
Some of my least favorite ones were from that month. Like 2, I just didn't like the ending that much. And YouTube does this thing where you don't like a video and then they make that one go viral, sort of. And it drives me crazy. It's views is directly inversely proportional to effort.
Oh yeah.
When you put a lot of effort in, those are the ones that 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 in your YouTube analytics. And then I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. I'll just throw this out. And then, oh, it's number 1, 100,000 views in a day. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I feel like there have only been a handful of times where the effort was even somewhat close to the results. And usually it's, the other way around where it's like, whatever. And I don't know what that is. Like, is that just, is that because you get so attached to an idea that you overwork it, or you end up putting in so much effort because the idea isn't just naturally good? I've always wondered, why is it? Because I find myself constantly pulling back effort in the hopes that the less effort I put in, I will trick whatever it is out there that causes this to happen.
Yeah. I don't get it all. Maybe it has to sometimes do with length. When you work harder, it's probably a longer video, and people are less likely to click on a long video. It's luck of the draw. I have no idea, but it's totally true. When you work like multiple days on a video, and you think, oh, this is gonna do poorly because I'm trying so hard to make this good.
Yeah. Do you when you make videos, whether it was during that stretch or now for the comedy channel in particular, how much are you thinking about what has done well before and how can I like kind of what worked there? Let me try that again. Or are you just sort of like doing what you think is good?
I think I'm mostly doing what I think is good, but I have themes on my channel. I have my religion videos, I have my slasher villain videos, kidnapper videos. So I have characters, and when those characters perform well, I keep doing those. So I will, if I want, I'm like I haven't done a kidnapper video in a while. I will just start thinking of like what's a good comic premise for two kidnappers, and I can expect those to perform pretty much just as well, as they always do. So, but I'm always trying to think of new ideas, random ideas. As you can tell from my titles, I have really random things. There are easy things to do in comedy, I feel like, oh, the worst types of teachers you deal with in school. Or, oh, when you're stuck at the DMV, things we can all relate to and stuff like that. But then I'll do a video on when God attempts No Nut November.
Yeah.
That's very random, but I love doing those. They take me longer to think of, but I love doing them because they're just like so out there.
Right.
If the title can get a laugh, I'm confident the video will do well.
Yeah, that's smart because it's like when you have those kind of unique things where the title is just like absurd and makes you laugh, it stands out a lot more than if you're trying to do like the types of teachers, because that's just so when you get relatable, then you're like competing and suddenly people can see, oh yeah, I know that is relatable and funny, but it's like now I have to sell you with like the thumbnail or something. Like if the title is telling me something that's pretty basic, so now something else has to give me a reason to click because the audience knows like there's probably like thousands of comedy videos covering the same exact topic. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. When it's super relatable, like everyone's dealt with school, all the annoying kids, the popular kids. You can make all those kinds of things. I've done one for like customer service. Yeah. Making fun of the things people deal with in customer service, and that's super relatable. I think that video did very well. But it's easy to think of those ideas. It's something we all have experienced or seen or something like that. So I like doing those, but sometimes those are easy, and I like getting a little more creative.
Oh, yeah. Do you have trouble with the title sometimes? Like, because it seems like it's so specific that, you know, that the title is kind of the joke of the thing, but do you ever have times where it's like you've written a script, or maybe you've even gotten to the point where it's uploaded and you're like, I don't know what to title this thing?
I have had that happen all the time.
Yeah.
I try to start with the title.
Yeah.
I try to have a title gone. When I've asked ChatGPT for help with videos before.
Oh, yeah.
ChatGPT is painfully unfunny.
Yeah.
Just ridiculously unfunny.
Yeah.
I've tried to have it be funny. It's not.
Yeah.
But when I try to have it help me, I once tried like, okay, write me a comedy skit for YouTube about this. It's garbage, and I'm like, okay, nothing in this is helpful. So then I'm like, okay, write me 10 YouTube titles for a comedy sketch about school or something. And that sometimes is better, because it might be, again, a painfully awful title. When the prank goes horribly wrong, watch hilarity, and it's so bad.
Oh, yeah.
But it might give me something like, oh, yeah, but what if you did do some kind of prank, or what if you kind of messed with the teacher? It gives me something to go off of. I've rarely actually used one of their ideas, but sometimes when I'm just not thinking of something, and I'm desperate for an idea, I'll go to ChatGPT or one of my general comedy writing books and like look for exercises on brainstorming, stuff like that. So yeah, I have done all of that, but titles all the way. Titles are important to start with.
Yeah, titles are you live and die by the title. I found that the problem, and it goes back to what we were talking about just a minute ago, is sometimes I get to the point where I'm trying to title something and I'm like, what is the most relatable way that I could title this, which ends up kind of making it unclear what the thing is about. Like, it's like I'm like clickbaiting in a way where it's not even interesting clickbait anymore because it doesn't make any sense. So but yeah, ChatGPT, it's weird. It titles, when you ask for YouTube titles, they make them sort of like in the style of some kind of I don't know, big channel that is like corporate, that's just like taking clips of other things, where it's like very sensationalistic, almost like a newspaper headline more than a YouTube title. It's
exactly. It's something you see like on the trending page from a channel you've never heard of, but has 20 million views. Or 20 million subs, and you're like, I don't know what this is. But yeah, with the colon explaining stuff, like almost not I don't know if comedy can be clickbait, but if there is a clickbait, it's that kind of stuff. Watch hilarity come to life in this. This will make you laugh so hard video. Like,
exactly. I'm like,
I'm not naming it that at all ever.
Yeah, it's not. And I've tried to figure out. I use it too. I'm trying to figure out how to trick it into being funny. One of the ways that I found where it was a little bit more reliably funny is in a very specific way, when I asked it to come up with headlines that sound like they're from The Onion. And I was like, give me a bunch of headlines from The Onion that are related to school, for instance. And it did come up with some funny stuff that actually was like, oh, there's like a story there, because that format of The Onion naturally is kind of like putting things together in a way that doesn't make sense, that implicates something is happening, because it's a news story. But it's a challenge to get it to come up with anything usable, I would say.
No, something else
1%.
Garbage about it just drives me crazy. ChatGPT is like talking to the world's most obnoxious parent, because especially when you're doing comedy, I don't like I'm not great at writing. Like, when I write, I'm not good at like making the sentences sound crisp and not like run on or like have words repeat. I've never been good at that. So I like using ChatGPT to clean up some of my sentences. If I need if the kidnapper's giving like a dramatic speech or something and I want to make it sound really good, I might use ChatGPT to clean it up. And I would ask it, like, write me a little paragraph on what a kidnapper would say to blah 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 after this happens. And ChatGPT will be like, it is not polite or safe to write about kidnapping, so I cannot help you with this. And I'll be like, okay, write me a freaking Pixar scene where a dog kidnaps the cat, so you don't scold me for writing about kid. It's so annoying. Or if it's something about religion, it'll be like, okay, so here's what you want, and then also make sure to not offend people with this, because I'm like, stop giving me a lecture every time I look something up. Because often it's just for maybe a little research, or maybe I'm just like, why do this the way it is in the Bible related to my video, so I can understand it better. But I hate being scolded by ChatGPT.
Yeah, it is so annoying. It does the same thing. Like, because humor inevitably has stuff that is like, rude a lot of times, it will like hone in on that and be like, remember, this is all in good fun. And, like with me, if I'm using it for help with a script about Myers-Briggs anything, it'll be like, remember, these are just types, it's not meant to put people in a box, and you shouldn't use this. It's like, look, don't waste your breath. Like, I'm not one time I was writing, I had the same thing happen. I was trying to get it to help me brainstorm ideas for a video about like people I was trying to like steal Mr. Beast's idea of like being buried alive. So I was trying to write a comedy sketch about that, and it wouldn't help me. It was like, you shouldn't joke about this, and I'm like, but it's comedy. Like it's going to be clear to the audience that it's not like a serious thing, and they're like, no, this under no circumstances. It was sort of like, you cannot make jokes about like the Holocaust and this.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, why is being buried alive in a and I was like, no, it's a competition. It's not like really buried alive. Like, no, you can't even go there. You can't go anywhere near that. And I was like getting in an argument with ChatGPT. I was like, okay, well, there are like comedies about murder. Why is that okay? And they're like, look, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying you can't make a joke about that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do the work myself. You're gonna make me be a creative person on my own.
Yeah, no, it's the worst is getting into arguments because it's real. You're like, why can't you do this, but you can do that? I don't explain yourself.
Yeah,
it's like, sorry, I can't help you with that. And you're like, why? No, I want to know. It's so frustrating. It feels like you're talking to a person.
Yeah, and you can't catch it in a logical trap because it's just like ultimately no, you just reach the edges of what it will do, and you're like, oh, whatever. But it's a valuable tool if you can get it to work, and I can't get it to work most times. So.
Yeah, no. Half the time it's like, oh, thanks, this was really fun. I'm glad this helped me with the creative process.
Right.
So much.
Yeah. Tell me about your writing process.
When I'm, there's a few things, I guess. When I'm thinking of an idea, very often it just comes to me at the most random time. I'm watching a movie. I'm in the shower, at the gym.
Yeah.
Something happens where I think of the premise, the title. Okay, this is kind of the game between the two characters. And then when I'm trying to think of an idea, one exercise I'll do is I'll write down 2 nouns. I got this from a book. Write down 2 nouns, or have a bunch of nouns and pick 2 randomly, and then just start writing. Start writing about those 2 nouns, whatever it may be. The nouns might be zombie and church, something like that. And just start writing about that. Oh, imagine if a zombie apocalypse came. Would we still have church going on? Oh, that's an interesting thing. Like, what if... And then just keep going. And I keep writing. And see if something comes to mind. See if something funny, it'd be funny if this happened.
Yeah.
And go from there. And when I'm writing the actual script, the dialogue or whatever, I read this in a book and I thought it was a great piece of advice. It was every line you go through should be either a joke or important to the story or leading to a good joke. If it's none of those, you can throw it out. And I thought that was really important in terms of cleaning up my writing. I'd go through my script, I'd write a script, go through it, and say, this line, is there any point to it? It's not funny, so do I need it to be funny, or do I need it for the story? And if not, take it out. It's the same thing with movies, they do that too. And I thought that was really important. So that's a big thing in my writing. And then every line, I'm trying to think of a twist or a turn, as they call it. That's usually what comedy is. You take them in a direction they think it's going, and then you switch it on them at the end. That's what a punchline is.
Yeah.
It takes you in a different direction. So I'm typically trying to do that. Say something that the audience is just simply not expecting. And that usually is I think where my jokes come from. Putting things in current slang for old videos or for old time periods is always funny. If my video is set in the 1500s and I'm using Gen Z terms, or I'm using social media, or I have my phone out, it's usually funny in itself. So I make an effort to kind of include things like that.
Yeah.
Current day, whatever.
Yeah.
Topical content. So, and I think the biggest thing for videos is kind of what's the game. The back and forth between my characters is usually this character wants something, this character wants something else, or doesn't want that, and they can't agree on how they're going to accomplish this thing. If it's the kidnappers, maybe they're talking about they kidnapped this guy's girlfriend, and they're talking about how maybe she shouldn't stay with him, but maybe he should, maybe she should, and there's this back and forth of that kind of thing. So usually it's what's the game that I have to figure out, and then the back and forth dialogue usually flows pretty easily from there, naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say the game, because that's a term that I learned recently.
Yeah.
Like, because I've started listening to the podcast Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey and David Spade, and it's all about like Saturday Night Live. And so I was like, how do writers on Saturday Night Live write a sketch? And I don't know if this article I came across is specifically about Saturday Night Live or just sketches in general, but it was talking about how like every sketch has the game, which is that basic like conflict and that recurring thing that's getting escalated 3 times or whatever it is throughout the sketch. I mean, it's something that like I knew the structure, but I didn't know that term. So that's interesting. Did you pick that up from one of these books?
Yeah, I think I got that from one of these books, and it's totally true. And I knew about that concept before I read it, because I was like, that's kind of what my videos do. A good example, actually, is I did a video on when Elon Musk bought Twitter. All these sponsors were leaving. I don't know if you remember this. All these sponsors were like, we're leaving because you're making this platform unsafe. And then they all came back, like sometimes a day later.
Yeah.
Like, we're back. We actually think maybe he can change. Like, it was the funniest, dumbest thing ever. So I made a video. It was titled like actually forget what it was titled, but it was about the advertisers and Elon Musk. And I had the advertisers be the girlfriend, I'm leaving you, and Elon Musk was the boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And when I knew that was going to be those two characters, girlfriend, boyfriend, advertisers, and Elon. And I was like, what is the dialogue going to be? What's the game? So I went on my whiteboard. I started writing a bunch of things related to Twitter, advertisers, Elon Musk, anything I could. And I eventually got to every company has a slogan. So I was like, okay, I could do something with slogans. Mm. And I had a breakup back and forth conversation, but instead of the typical "it's not you, it's me," it was advertiser slogans. Like Elon Musk would be like, "When you're here, you're family," from Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Or I'm loving it. I'm loving it here. McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
So I had a bunch of slogans. I was like, oh, that's the game. They're gonna be breaking up, but with brand slogans. And that was a minute and a half of content right there, back and forth. And it was good to go from there. So I found the game.
Right, yeah.
By doing that. Writing, it's going to the whiteboard. Like, what is relevant to this story that gives me the game?
Yeah. Do you do topical stuff like that often? Because, I mean, obviously you have your religious series, you have your kidnapper series. Those are kind of like standing on their own.
Yes.
But you like your most recent video is watching the news in August 2023 be like, which is about as topical as it can get.
That's as topical as it gets.
So
I'd say topical. Maybe 5% of my videos are genuinely topical. A few more recently. I do a lot of things that are relatable. What everyone wants to say, their upstairs neighbors. Stuff about landlords, the religious videos, sending a text to the wrong person, all that stuff, not topical. But then occasionally when I feel like I can make there's so much to make fun of, I have to do a topical video. I'm someone who, if it deserves to be made fun of, I want to make fun of it. Right. And a lot of people get mad at that. Because they're like, you're not making fun of this side or this thing enough. I'm like, we are all humans.
Yeah.
We're dumb and we make mistakes. Therefore, we can all be made fun of. If I make fun of this president, if I make fun of Biden or Trump, it doesn't mean I'm for the other guy. It means they're people, they're humans, they deserve to be made fun of. Politicians especially, no one's safe from that. It's ridiculous to assume otherwise. So I make fun of things that I think need to be made fun of, and in today's day and age, that's virtually everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, topical content comes up just because it deserves to be made fun of.
So what is that like the what would you call it, the funnel through which all of your content on this channel goes when you're thinking like, what is a Zach Starr himself video? Is it just like, what do I want to make fun of today? Like,
Yeah. I feel like I think my videos are two categories. One, making fun of something specific, whether it be apartment leases or the election.
Yeah.
And then two is just a comic premise, which is usually two things mashed together. So when it's you're a lawyer but for Jigsaw or something,
right?
That's a video idea I have right now. So it's just two things smashed together and it's a funny premise,
right?
So I feel like those are the two things I do exclusively.
Yeah, those. I mean, and those are tried and true kind of sketch. What would you call them? Sketch genres, sketch formats. Is like the news stuff, and then also like the what if, the taking something, your typical kind of Saturday Night Live typical situation, but putting something absurd into it that makes it funny. Rather than like the purely relatable stuff, which I think what I've gotten kind of caught too much in is a little bit outside of those in some ways. I mean, you can like escalate it. I think the relatable stuff is interesting because it's like taking what it's actually like and then blowing it up a bit so that the emotions that everyone feels but don't necessarily express are kind of put out there more. Yeah, that's it's interesting. I'm kind of just thinking out loud about these different formats. Let's see, where do I want to go next with this? You have a passion for comedy, but I do want to ask briefly, at least, about the educational channel, because you still post there every once in a while. The last video you posted has over 1 million views.
Yeah, that one did really well.
Yeah, and I wonder, like, how do you view both of these channels? Because it seems clear that the creativity and the passion is here for the comedy. How do you feel about the educational side, especially because just looking from an outsider's point of view, looking at the uploads before this recent hit, they were kind of like in the below 100,000 range. And I know those take a lot more effort. So have you ever thought like this isn't worth it anymore? Or do you still have a soft spot in your heart and you're like, I want to keep going with this?
I definitely still have that spot for educational, because the thing about me is I'm a huge nerd when it comes to this stuff. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to math, science, engineering stuff. I'm going through a math textbook right now simply for fun and for content.
Wow.
But
not relatable.
I find it interesting. Yeah, it's not relatable for most people. It's not something I say to most people. But no, I find it interesting. It keeps my brain active. You know how people do crosswords and stuff? Yeah, I'll go through math textbooks. It's just something it's a challenge to my brain. It kind of is like when you don't work out for too long. If you work out a lot and then just stop, you feel kind of sluggish after a while. Same thing with my brain. If I don't do something that requires intense thought, like that's technical, it feels weird. It feels like I haven't used my brain enough lately, which I don't like. But yeah, it's true that channel, the views are so sporadic and random, and it sucks. I wish it wasn't like that, but it's educational. So some people might like this topic in math, and then not this one.
Right.
So it's hard to keep people as engaged there. But I have a huge passion for teaching math. Like I was a tutor for 10 years, and I actually enjoyed doing it for most of it. It was just at the end. It was just getting frustrating because it was the same. It was SAT prep tutoring, so it was the same thing over and over. It became not a challenge at all. But I still love doing the educational stuff. It's just I've done so much of it, so much that I know is already on there. So it takes a lot of research, time, and then you don't know how many views you're going to get. And the comedy's much more consistent. But I find both of them very fun, very beneficial. I think they're both important.
Yeah.
In their own way. So it's just that comedy is easier to make. So when I have 12 hours today that I'll be able to work, if I can do a quarter of an educational or film an entire comedy and then start writing the next one, it's sometimes I want to do the comedy one.
Right.
Because I can get it done faster.
Yeah. And you also get the more immediate finish. You can complete it a lot faster and get the response from the audience a lot faster. Whereas with a longer video, and I've never made anything like when I make my longer, I call them my edutainment videos because I try to still keep them kind of loose. But they don't take a ton of time. Like the most time is maybe in the writing of it, but filming, I'm not doing like video essays, that level of complexity. Whereas it looks like yours do take a bit more because you have graphics and you have to explain a lot of stuff that's more complex.
And it has to be mathematically accurate, which is sometimes the toughest.
Yeah.
I have an animator who helps me with some stuff.
Yeah.
But if I send it to him, I'm like, this needs to look exactly like this. You can't, if there's a triangle and I say this is the longest side, that better be the longest side.
Yeah.
Like if it's slightly off, it's completely off. You can't have it be only a little off for that. So that sometimes is very tough. So sometimes I need to animate it myself because it's annoying. Like, okay, this is exactly what it has to look like. And when it's moving, I can't show that on a whiteboard. So I'm like, I will just do this on my own.
Yeah. Speaking of which, do you have a team for your comedy stuff? Because, I mean, you basically have alluded to you doing it pretty much all yourself. But do you have anyone else assisting? How does that work?
It's all me.
Yeah.
I've had people reach out and ask if I want like an editor. I don't know about you. Editing is a super important. That's half of comedy.
Yeah.
The timing and the cutting
Yeah.
and all that. That's a huge part of comedy. So I'm sure people who know what they're doing can do it better than me, honestly. But it's weird to me. I don't want to give them. It's like having them write the script. Like editing is part of the comedy, and so by giving it to someone else, they're doing the comedy for me, which I find weird.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll do that. I'll see how someone can do. But for now, it's all me. I write everything. It's obviously only me on camera, and the editing's all me too.
Yeah. No, that's a good point about editing because there are a lot of times where it's like, well, most times it's not that funny. Like if you just cut together what you filmed, even just a few seconds here and there, not even seconds, like frames, too much or too much or too little taken out between lines can ruin the comedy. And
yes, yeah.
And it's
if there's a pause or something.
Yeah.
You ever do that? Do you ever have like, okay, the one character just ended their sentence, the next character is gonna talk, and you like fine tune it like so perfectly. Yeah. You're like, you might move it like 2 frames.
Right.
Just like a fraction of a second. But you're like, no, I want them to start a little later. Or I want that character to interrupt the first one, like slightly, a slight interruption.
Yeah.
So you have to drag it a little over. All that stuff is important, and audience might not notice a little things, but I do, and I care about it, and it's just something I find important to do myself.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's a very personal thing. It's so weird because you would think that the comedy and like the timing would just be obvious to anyone doing it. But I've worked with editors on my comedy stuff, and I've worked with some editors who just like never got it. And I'm like, why? They'll return a project back to me, and it'll be cut so much flab in it, like so much air between the lines. I'm like, Did you think this was funny? Like, it's almost like insulting because there's no way you thought this was funny. So you must think I'm not funny if you cut it like this and thought this was good. You know what I mean? So luckily now I work with one of my friends who I've known for like 10 years. So it's easier for us to kind of get on the same page about the sense of humor. But even still, I'll have to like tweak things. And I do wonder, if it's not translating for him, like if it doesn't make a difference for him, would the audience ever notice? Like, I don't know. It's like those subtle things, like maybe they say they wouldn't, but maybe over time it would like lower the comedy by 10%, and that would make people go away. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're when you're so close to the work, you overthink it a lot.
Yeah.
I've exported videos, watched it, and I'm like, I'm gonna change something by probably a few milliseconds.
Yeah.
But I want to, because I want a slight delay before this person starts talking or whatever. And sometimes it's so stupid, but
Yeah.
I have to do it. When you had people doing your editing for you, did you literally just send them, whatever, an hour or two of just that raw footage of you just doing the line over and over?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
They picked which one they thought was best.
Yeah, well, that was the hardest part, because to me, so I've done it. I've kind of developed a system over time, because originally it would be like, here's all my takes, and sometimes if I knew one was a lot better, I would say use this one, but most of the time I'd leave it up to them. And sometimes when I got it back, I couldn't tell. So it was like, if I'm like, okay, this seems good enough, clearly it doesn't really matter. But now what I have done, at least with one of my cameras, is I got a foot pedal to turn on and off the recording, so I don't have to like reach over and hit the camera. And so I can make every take its own file, and then I can remember, it's usually like the last take anyway is the best one, but I can remember which one I want, and I just only send the good takes to the editor. So that also speeds things up, so they don't have to like sort through it. But sometimes I wonder if that's being such a control freak that I'm like, maybe some things what I found is it's either the first take is the best because it's like the most raw, or the last take is the best because it's the most polished. And it's like, it's never in between. It's always like, it's not quite polished, but it had the authenticity, or it's polished, so it has the timing right, even if it isn't as authentic. You know what I mean?
There's so much truth to that, and it's the worst. I have like maybe 20 seconds of dialogue I have to say in a row, and I maybe have to say it loudly or passionately. So I'll do that scene many times because I'm like, I don't want to redo this in 3 hours when I watch it editing and say, oh, that was not good. So I'll do it so many times. And it's kind of annoying when you look at it in editing and you're like, the first one was the best. I only need to do that.
Yeah.
Because it might take 10, 15 minutes of recording that one line over and over, only to realize you only needed 30 seconds. That first take, you were good to go.
Yeah. So over time, I went from when I was very first doing it, I would take many takes, but also like looking back, I was a way worse actor, 4 years ago. So now that I feel a bit more confident in my, not necessarily confident that I am a good actor, but I understand what I look like on camera, if that makes sense. Like before, like when you start off, you're not exactly sure what you're going to look like when you watch it. Yeah. But now it's like I'm very aware of, because I've watched myself so much, exactly what I look like at all times. So
100%.
Yeah.
I there's like facial expressions, for example. If you need to look confused or something, you might just like do like this at first, not knowing what you look like. Yeah. But then you see yourself 1,000 times trying to do a confused face, and you get the idea. You're like, okay. Like you think about it too. You're like, okay, is it eyebrows up or is it eyebrows down for this one? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And you actively have to think about that in the beginning. And then later you're like, okay, I'm going to do the eyebrows up look because I know that looks good for this scene or how I want it to look.
Yeah. Did you have any kind of background in theater or anything that led to this desire to do more performative stuff?
None whatsoever, but my whole family, yes. My mom and dad were both film majors. They went to NYU. That they met over there in New York, and they both worked in the film industry for a while. Not as actors, but as in the crew. My dad is still in film. He works on many big movies now as a locations manager.
Huh.
So he's very far down in the credits, but he gets to be on set. He just did a Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro movie.
Wow.
So we got to watch them film. It was very cool. So film stuff, I can go to them for questions all the time. They have taught me things about the technical side of film, but I was never in theater or drama club or anything like that. If you ask any person who went to school with me, high school or college, what do you think Zach ended up doing if they didn't know? They would all say teaching, engineering, or something with math, science, something in that realm. So no one would have expected me to do comedy videos.
Really?
Not at all.
Wow. So when you did the first one for your first channel, was that like the first comedy you had ever done ever? Like, or
Ever. I had never done stand-up. I had never done an improv class. I have been funny with friends, and that is it.
Wow.
And so the comedy was very new to me. Same with acting on. I hated how I looked on camera in the beginning. Like I looking back on my old videos, I cringe because it sounds unnatural. I talk weirdly. The way my eyes like look is awkward. I hate everything about my older videos because anyone who's naturally good on camera, I don't like you because I was not.
Yeah.
It's pure jealousy. I was not naturally good on camera. And I still don't think I'm amazing, but I've gotten better for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because, you know, like I said, I look back at my first comedy video specifically, and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Like, this is like, I'm like, the script is okay, but like my acting is so bad. Like, why does this is like some of the most popular videos are the first ones I did that were comedy. And like, my mom is like, yeah, that was your best video, that first comedy video you did. And I'm like, it's awful. Like, what? She's like, no, you're just so it's just so you. And I'm like, but what? It's not good.
Yeah, you're lying and biased.
So now I'm like, should I be toning everything down? Should I be purposefully bad? Like, is that my thing? Is that my is that the way to get at me the best? Because it is like, I don't know if you've ever
it's weird
felt
because,
like you need to kind of tinker with your performance. Because sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm pushing too hard now. Like maybe I went from so understated that I overcompensated, and now I'm just like too much. Like I'm pushing too much. I need to pull it back. Do you ever have anything like similar to that?
Sometimes I mean it's more in like the delivery of a line. Like I thought I wanted to say it loudly, but I didn't. But it turned out that wasn't good. But I don't think so much. It's weird because in the moment, whenever there's never been a video I've edited where I'm like, I don't like this, how I said this, or I don't like this dialogue or whatever, until weeks later.
Right.
If I rewatch old videos, I'm like, oh, that didn't look good. Why did I think that was good at first? That does happen, but never in the moment.
Yeah.
The video I just made, I was watching, I'm like, this looks good. I like everything about it. In 3 months, I might look back on it and say, no, why did I think that was good? It's weird. But in the moment, I always think at least sounds good. Maybe I don't like a joke, but I'm like, at least I sound normal. I think my acting is good. And then 3 months later, I'm like, my acting was not good in the slightest.
Yeah, I totally get what you mean. There are so many videos I look back on and I'm like, but what's also weird though is I look back on I'll occasionally, I don't do this that often, but go back and watch some of the greatest hits, or I end up watching them because I'm like making a compilation video or something, and I'm like, actually this one is really good. Like I understand why this one did better because it seems to be like significantly better than other things I was making around that time. Like I have a bit more objectivity. There are other ones though where I'm like, I don't know why this got so many views. Like it's not very good. But
yeah.
It's so interesting how you when you're so close to it, like you lose sight. You don't know what's good anymore.
Because you can't hear it fresh. You can't hear the joke for the first time when you write it. So you don't. I read this tip which I thought was good. It was write down every joke you ever think of. That I already do.
That's good.
Write down every joke, but then read them months later. If you don't use it and read it months later. And that's often when you can tell how funny it is because you're reading it kind of for the first time. You're going to forget about it. So if I'll write down jokes that I'm like, I don't know how I'll use that, but it's funny. So I'll put this in my little notepad. And then months later, I'll read it. And then if I laugh at that moment, I know it was funny. If not, then I'm like, oh, it was funny to me in the moment.
Yeah.
But maybe not so much.
Yeah. Or like, what did this even mean? Why did
Yeah. Why did I write this down?
Just a couple more questions for you. This has been a great, invigorating conversation for me to talk about comedy. I'm curious what your comedy influences are, whether that be other YouTubers that you look to pattern yourself off of, or like, stand-ups or like the big time sketch shows.
Yeah. No, I love that question. If I had to pick one, I would say my biggest influence has been South Park.
Ah, yeah.
The South Park show has influenced my comedy and sense of humor more than anyone else. Matt Stone and Trey Parker have had a bigger influence on me, I would say, than anyone else. Because I started watching them in like early college. So this was like, 2012, 2013 is when I started watching them like religiously. So as everyone's getting more offended by stuff, I'm watching South Park daily with my friends, and we're just quoting it. And what I love about South Park comedy is that show has influenced how people think about the world and certain actors and religions and just certain parts of our society that they've seen in a different light. And I love that about comedy. I find that powerful, and that's why I think I have a passion for it, because comedy can influence people's thoughts about the world. It can change people's opinions.
Yeah.
You know how what do they say? Like comedians are the only ones who like tell the truth anymore, kind of thing. Like when you see a stand-up comedian, they say things that are actually truthful.
Right.
Because they just put it in a different light. We're like, oh my God, I've never thought of it that way. I love that kind of thing. So South Park has been that to me in that I love the social commentary, and that's why I love doing that kind of comedy myself. I love poking fun at society in a way that makes you think.
Yeah.
And stand-ups, Bill Burr has been my favorite stand-up for most of my life. Tom Segura is pretty close. And they've had a pretty big impact on my comedy, I would say. But I love making comedy that makes people think, makes you learn something, can affect how you see the world. I love doing that. Not most of my videos don't do that, I would say, but those are what I'm most passionate about.
Yeah.
Doing. I find that so fun, and yeah. I didn't watch SNL growing up, so that wouldn't be an answer of mine. I did watch Family Guy. I've watched. I just finished watching the show Silicon Valley, which I find to be one of the funniest shows of all time. It was so hilarious. But yeah, I think those are some of my biggest answers, I would say. But South Park, I could talk about for hours.
Yeah. Do you have any YouTube channels that you follow to see? Do you bother trying to keep up with like what's the pulse of comedy on YouTube, or do you just kind of like do your own thing and not worry about it?
Yeah. I totally forgot about YouTubers. I think the two I watch the most are Long Beach Griffey and Stevie Emerson. Those are my favorite. Long Beach Griffey, I think, is the funniest skit guy on YouTube right now. And Stevie, if you've watched his channel, I love watching him for like he's so passionate about like the cinema behind it, and I get motivation from that of like little things, just camera angles and camera work and story and structure and all that. And he has a huge group that he does his videos with, and they all clearly love film, so I find that very fun. I don't like making comedy videos that are going to get you a nose exhale. You know, people are like, That's funny. That's relatable. There's some skit people who do that clearly. They make 20, 30-second videos to get kind of like yeah, that's true. I like making videos where you're either gonna laugh a lot or you're probably not gonna like it, but nothing in between. That's what I try to go for at least. So that's why all my skits are longer. So Stevie Emerson's one person who does that, and then I love how unfiltered Long Beach Griffey is.
Oh yeah.
I try to make my videos. I don't like political correctness for the most part. I try to make my videos reflect that. Like what I find funny goes in my videos. And again, South Park is my favorite show, so that is what's going to come out of my comedy videos.
Yeah. No, I like that a lot. I'd never. I'm just looking at. I'd never seen any Stevie Emerson before, so I'm glad that you.
Yeah, he's getting big. He's over 1 million followers now.
Yeah.
But yeah, watch any of his videos. You're like, oh, this guy likes film. Like he's a film guy.
Just from the thumbnails, I can tell.
Yeah. His passion for it is very obvious, and I really like that. I think it's important also watching people in comedy stand-up so you can kind of see what people are talking about and how others are reacting to it. Kind of how far people are taking things, what's a hot topic, what might not be getting laughs, and why. I find, because I'll maybe watch a stand-up comedian and I'm like, oh, people are finding that much funnier than I was expecting. So maybe there's something there with a video.
Yeah. I feel like stand-up is so weird, though, because what someone will laugh at when they're sitting by themselves watching a YouTube video is a little bit different than what they'll laugh at if they're in a room with,
so much so different.
People,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like when you're a stand-up, you can not get away with, but you can have a lot more laughs per minute with jokes that don't require as much effort, just because everyone is there to laugh and they want to laugh. And sometimes things get funnier when people are laughing, even if it's not that funny, but it's like, oh, so it does. I feel like there are things that you got to like try a bit harder to get things to land when you're doing YouTube, where it's just an audience watching it by themselves usually.
Yeah, it still has never felt real to me, but I don't know about you. I try to think about the person at the computer or phone watching this. Like, those are real people really watching this. To us, it's numbers on a screen and then words in the comment section. But those are real people, and sometimes I gotta kind of think about a person watching it, telling their friend, "Oh, come here, Zach posted another video. Let's watch it."
Yeah.
Like I need to be funny I don't want those two people watching and like clicking off because this one's boring.
Right.
Like, that's a really awkward thing to think about.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't want them to be like, this one.
This one.
Yeah.
3 minutes of not funny comedy sketch is awkward. It's a long 3 minutes. So they got to suffer before someone says, okay, let's click off. This is boring.
Yeah.
So I try to think about that.
Yeah. And it's funny because that's something that you would think is like just natural that one would think about, but it is like, I don't know that I could say that I think of it in that way. So I think it's helpful for me to hear you say that, because, a lot of times I'm just like, is it good enough? And I'm like holding it strictly to my perfectionistic standard of whatever I think is funny, which might, I mean, who knows? That ultimately that's like the only compass I have. But maybe, imagining my typical audience member watching it, I can be like, would they find this funny?
Do you laugh at your own videos when you're editing them together?
That happens occasionally, and usually it's the jokes that never get any mentions in the comments. So it's
that's the worst.
Yeah.
That's actually really annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've noticed that when I'm putting it together, I often do laugh at just seeing it. Like, I saw it in my head, but now I'm seeing it in real life. And I will laugh at it now. And I've realized if I'm not laughing myself, then probably the other people aren't, even though I know what the jokes are.
Yeah.
I just love seeing it come together. So I find it important that I'm laughing a little bit at least, even though I know the jokes. Because seeing it is different than thinking it.
Yeah, exactly. Which is one of the benefits of having an editor, because you just give them the stuff and then they come back with the video, and then you can kind of watch it as a viewer for the first
Oh,
time.
that's true. I
Yeah.
never thought of that. That is very true. Yeah, you can kind of watch it as a new person.
Yeah, I mean, the drawback is if anything is wrong, then you get the sinking feeling like, oh no, this is not going to work.
That was good.
When
Yeah.
all it really needs is a few tweaks, but it's like, oh, this is,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes a music can be a good fix.
Oh,
Have you
yeah.
ever had that where you don't like it and then you throw in a sound effect or dramatic music plays and you're like, oh, that just changed. That was a game changer.
Yeah, I feel like sound design is actually the key that a lot of people overlook, that I am trying to use more. But because it does add that element of ratcheting, because it gives the audience just another element of something to juxtapose what they're watching against, and another chance for you to make something like funny and absurd, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Even just like with one of my recent edutainment videos, I had a thing where I was like putting pieces of paper on the wall, like taping it to the wall. And there were parts where they would like fall down, and it just made it funnier to have like a sound effect of like glass breaking when it hit the ground. And it's like, just
literally.
Yeah.
Exactly what I've done. If I throw something, I'll have a explosion sound.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every time. It's just the little things like that. Little things.
Yeah.
Because it's unexpected and it makes it funnier.
It's things, yeah, and it's things you don't think about until I guess you just get so into it. And I get jealous of some, creators some comedy people who like don't need to do that, it seems like. And it's like, man, why can't I just do the most simple stuff and get away with it? I feel like I have to have a full production, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I feel more accomplished when it's a real production, when it's good green screen work and there's music and stuff. But yeah, it really just depends. Sometimes you don't need all that. You just need to go simple.
Yeah, that's what I try to do, but it always gets out of hand. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
So the closing question I like to ask everyone is about creativity, and specifically getting unstuck. If you're stuck creatively, and you seem like someone who doesn't really get stuck very often, so you can probably give us some good advice on getting going. So the basic premise is, like, imagine a deck of cards, and each card has something written on it that is intended to get you unstuck when you're creatively blocked. And the three categories I have are a question, where it can just be like something basic, like, are you working too fast? It's just something to kind of make you think about it differently, but it could be any kind of question. Or it could be a command, like, do this, try this differently. Or it could be something very practical, like, go outside, take a walk, take a break. Or something more abstract, whatever that would be. Or it could just be like a statement, like, it's supposed to be fun, is one that a previous guest said. So does anything come to mind, maybe something that you have told yourself before when you're like, man, I got to get a video out, but I'm not sure what to do?
Yeah, I think the not exciting answer, but one is work actively on it, engage your brain thinking of something, and then take a break and go for a walk or pace.
Yeah.
Pacing is really helpful for, is that a scientific thing? Pacing helps me with creativity. So
Yeah.
something about walking. I have a dartboard here that's very therapeutic for me. I will just throw darts when I need to think of an idea. It's very helpful. It kind of just relaxes the brain. You know when you're taking a test in school and then you walk out and you're struggling, you walk out the door and the answer comes to you?
Yeah.
It's so annoying, but it's because your brain was able to relax finally.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I was supposed to do this. Usually happens like in math or science. You're like, oh my God, this was the answer. Same thing with creativity, I think. Actively engage your brain and then take a break, and things will come to you. But for the writing process, for me, I would say getting on a whiteboard and writing stuff. I love doing like a bubble map or something. So I'll draw like what I want in the center. Maybe I have an idea for a kidnapper video or a religious video. So I'll write kidnappers in the middle. And then I'll branch off from that and say, okay, what is related to kidnappers? I could write the movie Taken and Liam Neeson. Or I could write ransom notes. Or I could write money, police. And then I'll branch off from that. If I have Liam Neeson, I'll branch off, maybe write some of his movies down. Then police, I'll branch off and write fire department, ambulance, write whatever. F the police, the song.
Yeah.
Right? Anything related. And then I'll have this map of things all related to what I want. And they get further from what you want the more you write. But you see what relates and see if maybe your brain makes connections that take one thing to another in a way that's funny or creative. This is also something I got from a book, by the way, but mapping out what you want and taking it as far as possible and then actively trying to relate the outer parts of your web back to your main theme and see what comes to mind. That's in the book. They say that's how joke writing works. If you want to write a joke about divorce, write the word divorce in the middle of a piece of paper, and then write things related to that, and then write things related to those things, and then try to make jokes that take those outer bubbles and relate it back to divorce. And that's usually what jokes are. They're taking kind of unrelated things and mashing them together in a way that's funny.
Wow, that's really good. Like, I guess would that be a mind map kind of thing where you're just
mind map. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, that's good. I've never heard this technique before. I'm going to try it because it sounds like a really solid technique for like just getting a lot of ideas down.
Yeah, exactly. I want to do a video. I don't have any ideas, but I know a video of two people sitting in a jail cell together would be a good premise.
Yeah.
I don't know who they are. It could be two slasher villains when Freddy and Jason go to jail and they're sitting there together. But when I want to write that video, I might write jail, and then I might write criminal, and then I might write slasher villains, and then I might write guard, and then I'll keep going, and then I'll just look at that map and see, okay, what would be funny here? What could I do with this?
Yeah.
And the more you write, the more things might come to mind. But it's you can see the world that might exist in your skit in one place.
I'm excited to try using this because sometimes it is like when you're writing a script, you're just like, without the map, you're starting from the center and just kind of like working out from there without like while you're there, like you're just trying to reach for things, but doing it the other way where it's like, let's just see everything that's related to this. And it's not
exactly.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel like work because you're just like, okay, what are all the things I can think of?
Exactly. If you take, for example, Kidnappers, the movie Taken, Liam Neeson, Schindler's List. Now you're 4 things away from Kidnappers. You're at Schindler's List. Those are very different, but you might see something there. You're like, oh, what if?
Yeah.
What if something? You could mash those 2 things together, and maybe a comic premise might come to mind. If you're just sitting there thinking, you'll never get from Kidnappers to Schindler's List. You'll never get there. But when you just mind map it out, anything can come up, and then you might see that connection. That game might appear to you.
Right. Well, Zach, thank you for leaving us with that last practical exercise.
Hell yeah. So I wanted to give something practical.
If
you could physically do.
Yeah, if nothing else, I'm definitely going to use it. So thank you, and thank you for joining me and having this conversation. It was a great, like I said, invigorating. I feel excited to make comedy now. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. No, thanks for having me on. This was my first ever podcast, so thank you.
Sweet. You did great. I never would have known.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I look like a pro.